I want to now cover a story that we haven't covered on the platform before, and more fools us. And it comes in the context as Samoa prepares to host today the first Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting hosted by a small Pacific nation. Luxon's up there. Prince Charles and Camilla are up there, and of course all Commonwealth leaders and countries in little old Samoa. And we're hoping like hell that no more diesel leaks out of the ship that we sunk there a week or two back. But all that comes, and there's probably not a coincidence in this, as our Parliament moves to progress a piece of legislation that rights a wrong going back many, many years. It's a really interesting story. And to learn more about it, we're joined now, and I hope not for the last time, by Samson Samasoni. And Samson is Director of the News for Pacific Media Network Limited. Samson, how are you, mate?
Good morning. Yeah, really good.
All right. Take us back to the Dominion Act of 1924. When Samoa, which was a protectorate, I suppose, of New Zealand, said and wanted us to colonise it. And it turns out that way back then, Samoans became British subjects, New Zealand citizens, right?
Yeah, well, let's go back even further, right? So let's go back to 1914. The Brits take over Samoa from Germany. Basically, New Zealand troops just walk in and Germans lay down their guns and they take it over. So British are running it, but New Zealand is doing the on-the-ground stuff.
Yeah.
Then in 1924, as you say, New Zealand officially took over the administration of Samoa. So that's the first key date, right? Now, the other thing that's good to remember at the time, 1920s, 1930s, that many New Zealanders thought they could become a colonial superpower.
Yeah.
So they're even talking about the possibility of Samoans having seats in New Zealand Parliament, right? So alongside Maoris. So this is some of the talk that was going on. So it was a different time, right?
Yeah.
Then in 1948, the New Zealand Citizenship Act comes into being.
Yeah.
So now you've got rules about how you become a New Zealand citizen. So these are the two key dates for this Samoan New Zealand.
And from 1948-49 on, Samoans didn't qualify under the new Dominion Act or whatever it was, Citizenship Act.
That's right, not under the New Zealand Citizenship Act. You had to go through a different process.
But everyone between 1924 and 1948 did. Should have been New Zealand citizens. Yeah.
Should have been New Zealand citizens, automatically. Yep, that was exactly what should have happened. So then in 1970s, early 1980s, a woman named Leah Panapa challenged this in court and said, hey, I should have had the rights of a New Zealand citizen during that period.
Yeah.
Eventually went to the Privy Council, and in 1982, she basically won. The Privy Council found in her favour and said that, yes, all Samoans born during that period should be
automatically New Zealand citizens. Fair enough.
And their descendants.
Oh, and their descendants. Okay, fair enough. Mum and Dad were New Zealanders, you become a New Zealander. That seems all right to me.
What does the Muldoon government do? It introduces a bill called the Citizenship, officially 1982 Citizenship Western Samoa Act, which basically stops that altogether.
So they just moved the goalposts, right?
They just changed everything. Lots of complaints.
Was this the time, Samson, of the Dawn Raids and stuff? So people getting caught up in that might have been New Zealand citizenships under these rules. Citizens under these.
The Dawn Raids were in the 70s.
Yeah.
It wasn't directly related in legal terms, but there was still that whole sense of one of these, Pacific people coming to take our jobs and all that sort of stuff. So there was that. So it was caught up in that sort of cultural, how the culture was resonating at the time. So but they put it in place despite all the protests from Samoans, and it's been like that ever since. And many say it's the most racist act still on New Zealand's books.
On the fairness at first blush scale, it doesn't pass the sniff test, does it? It's a dirty history, actually. All right, but we now have, I understand, cross-party support to at least in part right that wrong.
That's right. So what happened was Green Party MP Te Ano Tuiono, who's a Cook Island Māori, in fact, put up a bill, got pulled out of the biscuit tin last year, had its first reading announced in April. Now, in April, many people thought it was dead, right?
Yeah.
And yes, the opposition parties would support it, but very unlikely that ACT New Zealand First and National would support it. So wouldn't have the numbers, that was it. We did quite a bit of work over the time, just, hounding everybody about how they were going to vote and getting people to understand all the ramifications,
Yeah.
So we were slowly picking up on this vibe that, in fact, it may actually get through. So on the night, surprised everyone that, it wasn't quite a surprise, but New Zealand First voted for it.
Yeah.
So that was it. It was over. But then what was a real surprise is that ACT supported it as well.
Well, as I said, look, just on a fairness, the story you have told us this morning, which I'm sure many of our listeners, the vast majority, didn't know about, just on the grounds of fairness and giving people a fair go, it doesn't stack up.
And that's what they both said. But the problem was, National was the only one to oppose it.
Yeah.
So at the time, they looked a bit silly, little comments about whether they had egg on their face because of it. And so whether it would eventually get through, whether National would turn around or something that's being discussed. Now, went through the select committee process. There were more than 25,000 submissions.
Wow.
Which is huge for something like this. Only a few hundred were opposed to it. The rest were obviously in favour. So now we've come to the second reading, and that's today, 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And we're going to see how it turns out. Now, National have already confirmed to our media outlet, Pacific Media Network, or PMN News, that they will in fact support it past the second reading.
Wow.
They've still got changes they want to make.
Yeah.
And so New Zealand First wants to have a...
And look, Samson, I got to tell you, given that the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting is in Samoa today, they're doing it today for public relations reasons.
Well, perhaps.
Well, not perhaps, mate. I know how these people work. They'll be getting slaps on the back up in Apia, mate. That's what this is all about.
Yeah. Well, as you say, look, it's something that it's a wrong that needed to be righted, and so this is some way.
Yeah. Does the legislation give descendants citizenship? Because that would also seem fair. If my parents are New Zealanders, or one of my parents was a New Zealander, I should get New Zealand citizenship. Does this bill achieve that?